Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We're continuing on the building project of the large battleship here. So I'm cleaning up some more of the inventory here. Let me see the two cameras here. So this is the hangar aft, which views forward. This is the hangar forward viewing aft. So we want to go ahead and put these away into the cameras folder. We obviously want those on the toolbar so we can address them and use them. But we're going to go ahead and save, which will put those into the group, and then turn off on the terminal, which will get rid of them out of here. We have a bunch of... in fact, I'll go ahead and leave those for right now. So this guy is reconfigured. This is the speed matching information display, so that way both the pilot and the navigator here, and I moved this out of the way because I think the pilot and the navigator should be able to talk to one another, so having this thing in the middle was not entirely ideal. Artificial horizon here, which I think is still good. We have the ammo board, we have a power board, and then we have another ammo board. So this right now is just configured for the X3 turrets, which are the very, very large turrets in the front, or are actually two front, two aft. So aft A and B and forward A and B. And then this is the fixed mount tele and dual batteries, of which there are 16 forward and aft on each side, so 32 on each side, which is quite a few, all things considered. So port and starboard. So I guess 8 times 2, yeah, 32. So dual barrel weapons. So this is just showing the port side. This weapons display here is just showing the starboard side, as you can see. But the X3s are all there. So one of the things that I wanted to test, let's go ahead and go into the to the starboard side battery chair here, starboard side gunner chair. And one of the things I wanted to do was control this aft forward turret. And the reason I wanted to do that, so this is how slow these guys move, but I really want to see, as this thing turns, what kind of damage do I actually do to... Sorry, text message there. So, all right, we'll go back into number 2, and swivel back to the front. So, F8 here, which will jump us out forward. Just because I want to see what's going on here. Alright, and F6, jump back into the chair, jump back into the turret here. Alright, well that didn't function as planned. Well, maybe it doesn't, which is good. So that's awesome. So it does not hit. So I'm glad for that. Okay, so 6 back in T. Actually, we'll go ahead and control, and what I want to do is roll the gun all the way down, and then center. And T. Oops. Flatten that out. All right, so I think we have effectively proved concept here. So we have a methodology of exit here, which is good. I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and change. Change that. Oh, that's not what I wanted. All right, so we have a display for all munitions on both sides. We have power on both sides. The only other thing that that may or may not be helpful was some of the different status. So if we, I'm going to use the F8 here again to get myself easily where I want to. So one of the advantages to the status boards here, let's take the two green ones here. So we have a connector status board. We also have a door status board that shows pretty much everything that's going on here. And my thought process is that actually having this particular board up on the bridge may be advantageous. You know, how much we put up there is really, I guess, a function of, you know, what do we really want to do in the end. So I think a combination of these two boards may be useful up there, and I don't really think having inventory on the board, so either one of these types of inventory, I don't think would be very helpful. I don't think a build and repair system status would be very helpful. ISI doing what ISI does is probably not very helpful. There's only one of these, unfortunately. You can't. If I had any pipe dream, it would be you could actually have multiple pairs of these around the ship where it would be convenient. In this case, the hangar bay is where the main inventory control for ISI is, because there's only one, so logically it belongs right here. So the component inventory here, I'm not entirely sure what it does. So what I'm thinking is that I will go ahead and put so I'm going to put a LCD here. We're going to seize ownership of this out and back in. So this is ISI status hangar, which is a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118 So the exclamation point IIM is what it's looking for. And then we'll change this one here. And I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try it. Sorry, let me look here and see how I name this. So this is ISI status inventory, inventory 1, and we're going to call this ISI status exclamation inventory 2, and then custom data. Whoa. Components. Component. All right, that didn't work as intended. So inventory. That didn't work either. So I don't know if any of this can actually be manipulated as far as so bulletproof glass is the top. Point 35. Oh, I guess we can. A little bit hard to see. The other side of this equation is, do you need ISI inventory here and other inventory there? Is there really a point to having two different inventory sets? And probably not. So just out of curiosity, well, actually, you know what? So custom data here, let's go ahead and we'll cause this to default out. So ingot, component, or ammo, gas, gun. Ideally would be tools. Two modifiers at this point. No bar to hide empty. Okay, so gas. so I would like gas gun tool. Tool. Okay. I'm a little confused because it says right there on the screen gas. Following types of custom data: ingot, component, ore, ammo, gas, gun. Comma. Maybe it is just one. Magnesium. I'm out of magnesium and I'm out of gravel. Darn it. But let's see where we're at here for all of these things. Oops, so this interpreted that a little differently than I had intended. Go ahead and change that to a 0.4 and see if it still falls off the screen. So I still think a little bit redundant in terms of what we need to display here. So maybe we'll just have some fun here. So let's change this one to gas. And we'll change this to, So we have both oxygen bottles and hydrogen bottles, but it's only listing the hydrogen bottles. Oh, so guns and tools all show up with guns. Alright, nice to know. Gas container object. I wonder why it does not. Wonder why it doesn't show oxygen. That's kind of weird. Okay. Another save. Now that we're there. Did it actually fix itself? Nope. All right. So one of the issues. Do another save and B. So one of the aspects here that I think will be pretty obvious is it has all kinds of stuff. So the refineries are in, the cameras are in. I don't have a projector yet, but that'll come eventually. I've done the toolbars on the bridge for the most part. Speaking of bridge, so sorry. Oops. So F8 one more time here. One of the things that I wanted to do here up on the bridge was to I was gonna say I figure out how to do this. So what I wanted to do was put a medical medical bay in here, and it's kind of the figuring out how to do that. All right, let's I don't know if this is going to work. So the bounding box for medical is a little bit strange. So if we go over to 3, in this case, it would put this medical bay right here. It would connect it on. What I don't know is in terms of, I don't know if the bounding box is around the medical bay or if it blocks this. So I truly have no idea if this thing is going to work as anticipated or if it won't. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for now, just because. Not sure when I injured myself, but probably ran myself into a alright, and this is bridge. Transfer to me, turn that off. We'll go down here to medical room. Systems miscellaneous. We'll turn this guy off on the toolbar because there's no reason to have him on the toolbar. You can't really do anything with him. And then save him in the miscellaneous group and terminal off. So in this case, we have all of these guys. Speed match, I'm going to not put in the computers and displays group yet. So we can pretty much turn those off on the toolbar. Computers and display, save, and then off on the terminal. So we should have very few. There's my one speed match, and the reason I'm leaving that is because there's no thrusters yet, which is kind of what I was getting to on the outside. But this won't work until I've actually got thrusters I can test with. So, all right. So now we have this guy on the bridge here. I thought maybe having a status indicator would be a good thing, and maybe we will go ahead and put K, we'll do a Control A and a me, which will bring that in. We're going to turn these on for a second. LCD. I don't know that we necessarily need the gas generators. Nice to have information, but I think so Control C, port. That was not station. So bridge status port. So the port side bridge status. We'll go ahead and change this also. Bridge status starboard. And we're working with the port. So we'll go ahead and customize a little bit here. The other thing that I forgot to do is LCD. LCD. We'll go ahead and change this. I'm going to go to just an arbitrary 0.6. We're going to turn the red off and the blue off. We're going to leave that an obnoxious green, but we're going to turn down its intensity just slightly, and we'll do the same thing on the port. So we're going to set this at 0.6, which I think will be good. We turn off the red, off the blue, and 192 to make that not quite as obnoxious. Connectors, there we go. All right, LCD, status number 2, there was some more information in here that I think I can use. Not going to have the door status just because I think that's a little bit over the top to have it, you know, in both places. Just no need for that. Bridge status, custom data, and all right, so we have connectors, we have our working status, we have our cargo, which is just the cargo attached to this particular grid. This is just the tanks connected to this grid, and this is this group. So anything that has tanks, oxygen listed in it will be displayed here. All right, and let's see how this works. Takes a couple seconds sometimes to update. So I think this is reasonably effective. So Control A, Control C to copy, and then we go to the other, sorry, we can do that here, bridge status starboard custom data, and Control V to paste, and OK. So that one is there, and this one should come up shortly. At least I hope it will. Commands with custom data of this panel. Bink. Okay. So okay, to go back in, we have bridge status, and we're going to put first we're going to take those off the toolbar, then we're going to computer display and save, so those go into the group, and then turn them off on the terminal. Alright, so we have our antenna, which actually is controlled by the hack defense programmer block. We have our bridge speed match, which will give us information, and the reason I left that out was just because I have no idea what that's going to do yet. Okay, so let's do an F8 once again. We'll get out here a little bit of a ways, do a control space to teleport to my camera, F6 to get back into my body. Okay, then here's a couple of things that we need to decide how to do. Bottom line here is that I built this whole thing and I wanted to get the base structure down. I had always intended to use engine pods. I just didn't know how or where I was going to do everything with the engine pods, but ultimately I knew I was going to do engine pods in some way. So the bottom line now is I need to figure out where the engine pods will go, and in fact how many engine pods. I was actually thinking about one forward port and starboard, one mid port and starboard, and then this big one aft. So this is a kind of a revamp of a different one I did that was a 2x2. So in this case I chopped it in half, so then it has 2 in every direction, which is really to say 5 directions, because of course the other one on the other side will then be the other direction. So this thing, this behemoth, one of the things this was designed and built for a completely different vessel, and while I really like it, I don't know if it's going to work here. And the other thing I need to figure out is, do I kind of recreate the end of the ship, chop this back portion off, and chop this middle out, and then just really paste these things on the side, because ultimately it needs to be beyond the end of the antennas, which means I have to come out at least 5 blocks for this to really be effective how I want it. So I think that having been said, it would be practical to kind of redesign some of this stuff, and I'm not sure how much of this I will do on screen and how much off. The other side of the equation here is I need to remove, so these are the energy weapons, and I really do like the energy weapons, and there's 2 reasons for that. The energy weapons do not require ammo. They kind of have their own ammo inside, but you don't have to connect them to the grid, which is to say you don't have to plumb them in to the conveyor network, which is really kind of neat. So you can put, as you can see here, a metric shit ton of them, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So Ultimately, I think I'm going to rework this and have this kind of curve around thing, which means the thing up here is how do I make these quote unquote pods? Do I have the pods embedded like I do here? And they're basically embedded on all sides, so do I want to do that way? And the reason this is a little bit different is because of the way this is all set up. So you notice that none of these are interconnected. So these are the interconnection points here which go out through this this post here, this strut kind of a thing. The other side is, how do I want to do this strut? How do I want to connect this on here? Do I want to have it as a kind of a scaffold, kind of a frame? In the process of holding all these together, how do I really want to do this? Do I want to have it exposed, kind of very industrial looking? How do I want to do this? So this was a pod that I had on another vessel that I was experimenting with, and so I figured I would take this and use it a little bit, manipulate it a little bit, and see what happens. So one of the things I think we need to do here is figure out how to make all this work. So I'm going to go ahead and use the I've already got them in use out here, so I might as well continue using the Prosimian armored conveyors. What I'm not sure is why this is not. Oh, it's because mirroring is still turned on for this, and the mirroring is a little bit incorrect. So there we go. All right. Now, there's a bunch of batteries in the bay here, and I think I'm going to add. I'm not seeing. All right. I don't know why those are not looking in the right direction. All right, so redundancy being what it is, so this is going to feed hydrogen in. These two guys are interconnected by way of the side ports. So those two are interconnected. So what I'm gonna do is put a Kenti overpowered hydrogen tank in here. So one there and one there. which will then interconnect those. I'm also going to put a hydrogen tank there and here. So there'll be 4 large, which is to say overpowered hydrogen tanks. These 2 guys are interconnected, and then these 2 guys are interconnected via that. So what we can do here is put battery and battery, and then we will interconnect through here. So we have a 4, which will turn sideways here. 4. This is going to be a 5, which is just an elbow here and here. And then in this case, we're going, correction. So this is going to be a number 8, which is going to be a corner. So we have this there. We have this one here, which is going to the other one there. Alright, sorry. I messed up again because there's going to be another thruster above this one exactly opposite of the other one. So this actually needs to be a edge connector. Alright, so I think I now have this correct. And then this one here needs to be across, which is this, which is that and that. Then we have the large Kenti thrusters here, which will be here and here. And those will interconnect on the top as well as the bottom. All right, and I'm going to change these guys for sake of so 4 to get me back on there. So right now this is a T. I'm going to change this to an edge. Alright, so the edge will then connect side to side as well as into the, in this case, hydrogen tank. And then we will add T's here, which will then connect end to end, as well as another set of hydrogen tanks. Alright, so now we have a bunch of hydrogen tanks. Back to our blocks, which will then put blocks all the way on the side here, and then we go down below and put block back in where we removed it before. The only other possible thing we could do is put more hydrogen tanks out here, and do we really want to do that, or do we want to keep them armored? And I think we'll keep them armored. Okay, that's just the corner piece. Alright, so now that we have this here, the question is, what else do we do? There's a portion of me that says having something like this, but turned to a different color. Okay, I'm gonna try something here just for fun. And what we're gonna do is go ahead and play with. So let me go ahead and turn that one off. Turn that one off. All right. So we're gonna turn on mirroring this way. And I have an idea, but I don't know how it's going to work. So this is going to be a bit block intensive. So effectively, oh, that's not working how I wanted it to work. There we go. All right. Basically, my thought here is offsetting this by half a block, just to see what the artistic value might be. And I'm not sure there is any here. So in this case, we would be going back to this, and then this becomes our connection point. If we really wanted to make it look interesting, then we would do something like this. And then possibly change these out from the tiger orange, or the black rather. No way to get in there, unfortunately. Alright. I don't know if that really is in keeping with the aesthetic or not. I do kind of like that half block shift. And I also like the contrast between this, which slopes down, and this, which slopes up. So, having said that, now it's the matter of figuring out, oh, I'm inverted relative to the ship. So, from here, it is the matter of figuring out where to put it. the bottom line, to attach this onto the ship, I'm thinking right here under the weapons, which would be a mount here and possibly a mount here. So the real question is, with this thing being as heavy as it is likely going to be, do I have enough thrust here between one on each side and this aft thruster array to do this any justice at all? And I truly don't know. The only way to really know for sure is to put them on and find out. So having said that, I guess what that really means is that I'm going to have to take this stuff out. So we will change to this so some of our ribbing will disappear, but I think that is fine. I can't really put the ribbing on here. The other question is how to get this in. So 1, 2, 3. So this is 8 wide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which is going to be a little bit of a problem because that's going right into the shield room. So 1, 2, 3. So theoretically, this will go on. No, it will not, and I don't know why. Oh, it's because of these. Oh, that's gonna have to be lower anyway because I gotta shoot over it. See, I think those are gonna have to be down there just to get over them. So having said that, let me So we're going to go ahead and attach it here. And I may actually need to pull that off. But ultimately what I need to do is see, does this clear? And it does. Well, I could go up one more. But let's look at the profile here and see. Yeah, so I think one more. This is another thing that I didn't show. So one of the things I wanted to do, well, one of the things I had to do was, because this is the deck, the lower deck. And because I put the connectors into the bottom of the hangar bay, then I had to have some way to plumb those in, because the connectors do not, they have a port opposite the connector. So ultimately it is a block tall. And so if you're trying to connect it, you're going to be at least 2 blocks tall to connect it to anything. So what I did was put this, the proverbial keel, under the ship, and then went down the long axis of the ship. And in the process of that, I went ahead and added 2 more connectors. So the connectors ultimately are there. So in this case, if I were wanting to land, then I would have, let's go to the profile once again. Then the keel itself is even with the bottom, and then I have 1 more block below that. So right now, if I were to land, then it would be sitting on these guys. The other thing I need to look at is, yeah, we're way clear. We're two blocks clear, 2.5 blocks clear. All right, so the only other question mark is, are these guys right here, and they will clear, so they'll clear that shot, which is good. So the only other question mark is, do we put another pod forward, which would be somewhere up in here. Obviously, if we did that, we would have to change the symmetry here. We would have, so this would have to be, this is the aftmost attach point here. The downside to that is now these things are closer than 5 blocks, which would be a problem. So they would ultimately burn each other up. So at this point, I don't see how I could do anything but I don't see how I could really go forward anymore other than going below the line. And I don't know if I want to go too much more below the line. So now we're at a factor of thrust. Is there enough thrust to move this ship reasonably well? Gyro control is really good. So the only question mark at this point is entirely about thrust. Then there's the question of how many pods. So obviously we have to have these pods at least 5 blocks apart. So I can bolt one on back here and leave this here. I could potentially bolt another one on right here, and then there's this guy, which if I bolt him up at the very back end of the ship, then I would still have room to come out from there. So I'm going to have to chop the fantail off. This more creative angle here will have to come off, but I think we'll be all right. So technically I could have 3 pods per side and still do okay. As long as I have 5 in between, then none of the thrusters will affect one another, which is good. So, having said that, let's go ahead and we got the hole here. Let's do a Control V, which will paste this guy into the world again. These are, as far as I know, completely symmetrical. So that should be okay. And bottom and paste. Okay, the good news is the sight, even though it's going to be here, and we'll move the sight out here. So that will be one thing that I do have to change. So these are the sight cameras here. So this is obviously the port side forward sight for these weapons here. And moving that out here shouldn't be much of a problem. If I really wanted to, I could actually, so let me go down just a little bit so we have perspective. So that is right here about where my reticle is. So if I did a light armor block like this, and we'll turn that to a different color like this. So it looks a little silly, but as a camera mount, then boom, it's there. So the other thing we may actually be able to do, in fact, let's try it. Little less profile, 7, 9, and camera. So this would recreate the sight cameras at exactly the same height and angle relative to these guys. Linearly speaking, of course. So the question is do we like the way this looks? And the real problem, Okay, I don't know why that vanished. I don't know if I don't know what happened there. I have no idea. I truly have no idea. Okay, one of the other things, and this is kind of pod planning, is figuring out what else we can do. And my thoughts are the bottom here is going to be a little interesting in how, let me look a little differently here. Yeah, so we have one block below the keel of the ship, which is the thrusters, which is fine. So my thoughts are the weapon systems on this vessel I think are reasonably adequate. Now some may look at this and say, well, this thing is just absolutely armed to its teeth, but if you consider, now let's not for just a moment consider these cannon on the side, so the Telian duals here. So pretend those aren't there for a moment. If we look at this from a battleship perspective, and I know this is probably dating a lot of people here, but if you think back to World War II, specifically the Iowa class battleship built by the United States Navy, and you just look at the anti-fighter and anti-missile capabilities, then these battleships are actually fairly consistent, which is to say comparable. So we have the three, in the case of the Iowa class, we had three 16-inch 3-barrel turrets. So we had 2 forward and 1 aft. In this case, we have 2 forward and 2 aft, so there's a little bit of differential there. So obviously a third greater capability. But as far as anti-fighter, anti-aircraft, that sort of thing, we didn't really have missiles in those days. We did have bombs, but no missiles. Missiles was a later thing. So we would not have the need for anti-missile, but we did have anti-fighter, which is really to say anti-aircraft. So in this case, I think we're comparative. So my thoughts were, if I could put more fighter stuff here. Actually, let me finish the other thought, the direct comparison to the Battleship. A Battleship, of course, has... we need to consider the only attacks from underwater are going to be torpedoes. However we get the torpedoes in the water. Obviously, we could drop torpedoes from aircraft if they were going slow enough. And then submarine-based torpedoes. So we have torpedoes in the water. The hull of the Iowa-class battleship was 16 inches of poured steel, which is an awful lot of steel. So the amount of destructive force that it would take to actually penetrate that is a lot. So it was almost invulnerable to most torpedo attacks at the time, and mines. There wasn't really any mines that were capable of going through that much steel. Now, did that mean it wouldn't do damage? No, because you take something that is, I think it was 76,000 tons of displacement, which is quite a bit. So consider today 96,000 tons is the typical United States Nimitz class carrier. The Ford class is actually quite a bit heavier than that, but so 96,000 tons of displacement versus I believe it was 72,000 tons of displacement for the Iowa class battleship. But if you consider 900 feet of vessel versus 1,100 feet of vessel, the width being a little bit different and that sort of thing, the battleship was heavy, even comparing to the carrier. So vulnerabilities. In this case, we're in space. We have a three-dimensional warfare arena, up, down, sideways. In this case, we are much more protected, which is to say, able to return offensive fire from the mid-plane up, but have virtually nothing from mid-plane down. So at a distance, we have slight capabilities because the turrets actually go down below the zero line. So by arming these pods, I think we could actually add a little bit of protection below the plane. Now, having said that, with enough gyro capability, we can swing this thing around 180 degrees on its center line and turn it over. Because after all, we are in a 3D space. So even though I have a relative plane, so everything above plane is capable of returning fire, I can orbit the plane. And what I mean by that is I can change the orientation of the plane. I can turn this thing upside down. Then now all this firepower is going to be brought to bear in the completely opposite plane. So I don't see that as being much of a problem. The only other aspect of this is this here. Is we have one block differential. Two. Sorry. So we have a one block differential above the cones, which is fine. I think we can work with that because all of these things are one block tall. So if I put another row of anti-fighter out here and then another row of missile defense back here, top and bottom, then I think we would actually be good. And theoretically, I could put another row of anti-fighter out here, which would then bring, basically we'd have entire 360 degrees of plane for fighter control, which may be wise. So having said that, I am way over time again, but I wanted to at least share with you my ideas on where things could possibly go. Yeah, so having said that, this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.